there's some really kind of obvious points, but I think first and foremost, that's really important to get right, whether that's in your visual, how you present yourself visually, but also within emails, how you conduct yourself with your email etiquette, the timings you email people, and kind of the appropriateness and the language you use within the emails. Within my placement, so to speak, I didn't find this too much of an issue because I was already accustomed through other environments of how to address people within kind of businessy professional domains. But I think that's something you've got to get right from the get-go. Even if you are doing a placement from home per se, is just really knowing what's appropriate, what's inappropriate as well. So I guess if I was to relate to my placement, I had opportunities to speak to athletes, like elite athletes. So some of them, one of the doubles pairs won the bronze medal at Rio's 2016. I had opportunity to speak to them. There was the performance director as well, but those had to be very much opportunities which, you put a request in and say, are you available, sort of thing. You couldn't just knock on their door and you like have a casual conversation. It's kind of knowing the I guess the landscape of the organization you're working in and get to know their norms and values as quick as you can without just going in there with what you think necessarily is appropriate, but it's really getting to know quite quickly, whether that's through the initial setting of expectations with the placement. It's really getting to know how they expect you to behave, and then that way you can integrate within the environment a lot quicker. I think out of a few pieces of advice, that'd be the main one that I would provide, is to definitely get to know the organization you're working with, and remain professional at all times. And then in that way, you're welcomed a bit more, and then you'll be able to get the most out of the placement because accepted, that and organized and professional. And when you show those values to them, then you're making an impact on them, and then therefore they will, I'm sure, at the end of it, write a very positive placement report, which you can take forward to other employers, demonstrating your hard work and abilities.
Thank you. I completely agree. And there's just quickly 2 points I was going to pick up on that. A great piece of advice I got many moons ago when I first started work was, if you're not sure what to wear or how to present yourself, I mean, don't, if you're going to work in an ad agency, don't turn up in a 3-piece suit, but always, if you're not sure, always slightly smarter than you think you should be. Because if you were slightly smarter, all they'll think is that you want to make a good impression and you made an effort. If you turn up too scruffy, that will make a very negative impression and will stay with you. So always, you don't need to go out and buy brand new clothes, clean shoes, no holes in your clothes. It's simple things like that. But yeah, always aim slightly. If you're not sure, go on the higher level. And then the other thing I wanted to pick up on is the contacts. And as Richard said, you are not just meeting the people in the organisation. The world is very small, and particularly industries are very small. If you impress in a business, even if it's a small business or employer, they will have friends who might have vacancies, who might be able to offer you a job or a vacancy going forward. So see it as your placement is just the beginning of the circle of the contacts that you could potentially make. Macaulay, you're in a business. You've probably got some good tips on this.
Yeah, just to add on basically the contacts part, what I used to do, and it sounds a little bit nerdy, but I used to come in like half an hour earlier, just because then you might be able to just grab somebody, like a director or, somebody in a management position, and just have a little quick 5-minute chat with him, and just build that relationship up. I've still got great relationships with the people from my first placement, just by doing that. And if you can't come in early, just stay behind 10 minutes afterwards, or even just go out your way and try and help somebody. If you see somebody struggling, and just be honest and just say, oh, do you need any help with anything? I've got a spare 10-15 minutes this afternoon. That's basically all I've got to add onto that one.
Yeah, because there's nothing that employed, particularly if you go somewhere where they've sort of set up on their own, or it's maybe a charity or a voluntary organisation that they're passionate about. There's nothing that impresses people more than you showing an interest and a passion for what they like. You know, that will win you many, many friends. So, you know, before you go on your placement, do a bit of research. Chances are, you know, if it's a placement you've sourced yourself or one that you've, you know, seen and you really want to go for, you will already be passionate and excited about it. But if you can, you know, ask questions, they don't expect you to be an expert, but be interested, ask questions, have done a bit of research. You will see people's body language towards you change. They will smile. They will be impressed with you. They will, more importantly, they will tell their friends, they will tell their colleagues, they will tell their business networks about this amazing student they've got. And that is when you start getting the amazing, you know, the great opportunities going forward. Let me just see. Sorry. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to add? Any questions? Yeah, see, might be a question here. Yeah. So Richard said rapport building, impression management. I think that is the thing. We've got a hand up here. Let me just see. Brett, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to pop in and sort of really echo what the alumni were saying. Obviously, a big thanks to the alumni for coming in. Hello, Richard. Good to see you. But I think as the alumni officer, I get a lot of profiles from alumni, and so many of them mention about and how it really affected them. And I think whether the placement is what you really wanted or if it was challenging, I think it's what you can get out of it. Sometimes the challenging ones can be even better for you to develop as a person. And I think it really sort of shows you the industry as it is. And sometimes you might come away thinking, maybe that's not quite what I want, but something similar in the industry would really work for me. And I think we do have a lot of alumni that go on to work for their placement providers. It might not be straight away, but like both the alumni have said, it's all about contacts. The more contacts you can build up. I thought I didn't know Macaulay, but I knew Richard very well as a student and someone who was highly organised. I did a lot of projects with him. I knew if I worked with Richard, things would be done. But Richard was someone that really built up contacts over the time. I know he came back to do a bit of lecturing, but that was because he kept in touch with the department and really sort of pushed the contacts he had. So I think it really makes a difference just to stay in there, keep connected and do as much as you can to get to where you need to be.
Thank you, Brett.
Great praise indeed. Because we do have a lot of contacts here. So, you know, the myFuture team, you know, we do as much as we can, along with the alumni team, to find you the best, you know, the best placements that we can for you. Another really basic tip I wanted to add, and you know, some of you might be rolling your eyes at this if you already have jobs and you know, busy lives, but it's silly things like, you know, if you have to be there, check how to get there first. Because, you know, check the route, check the bus, check the car park. That sounds like a silly tip, but again, someone told me that for once. My first job used to involve loads of travelling to meetings, and my boss, but the best piece of advice, and I still stick with it 20 years later, is if you need to go somewhere and it's, you know, important, work out how long it's going to take you and add on half. The worst case is you get there half an hour early and you have time to grab a coffee or a drink and, you know, arrive. Otherwise, you know, you arrive and you're flustered and, you know, late. So, you know, work it out and add on a bit of time. Any other like little silly killer tips that anyone would have?
Well, just on that one, Charlotte, I did a practice run, shall we call it. So just before I think my first day was on a Tuesday, something like that. So on the Monday, I got up early, like exactly the same time what I would do normally, and just did the journey, even though I wasn't going to work that particular day, just to see how long it would take me. And just, you know, familiarize yourself with the area as well, because for me, it was a totally different new area. So I come from near Leeds, so I'm working in Barnsley now. So I didn't know Barnsley at all. So literally just did the normal run and then just drive around a little bit. And yeah, that really did help me. Did that run.
No, I still get flustered when I go somewhere completely new that I've never been before. And I used to have a job where I used to go all around the world, you know, go to business meetings abroad in a foreign language, and and I used to be able to do that, and I still get a bit stressed. If you have to go somewhere in Leeds I haven't been before, I think because it's just psychologically it puts you on edge, doesn't it? Because it's a new place. So if you can arrive at your placement comfortable, relaxed, you've parked where you can park, where it's affordable parking, you're not stressing about feeding the meter, or the route from the train station or the bus stop. These are all little things, but if you build them up, they're all little pieces that when you get there, you'll feel better. You'll go in confident and happy. Richard's nodding. Is there anything else on that you'd add? On your first morning, is there any tips you'd have?
I think again, it's just adding on top of what you've yourself, Charlotte, and Macaulay said. I think it's, what I would add is logistics. So for me, with my placement, so it was 6-week placement, and because the placement was in Milton Keynes, and obviously at the time I lived in Leeds, I had to work out the logistics of where I was staying. So I was really thankful actually that at the National Badminton Centre they have accommodation on campus, but equally they weren't, as much as they were really, really generous and they cut it half price for me, they weren't going to let me stay there for free. So equally as well, with some placements you've got to be prepared in the meantime. So rather than guns ho saying yes, I'm doing this placement, really work out the logistics, whether that be accommodation, travel costs, and so on and so forth, before going forth with the placement. Maybe discuss it with your advisors from the myFuture team and really think about the feasibility to it. I was very fortunate with the support I was provided by Leeds Trinity, and also my family to help support me with the costs for staying in Milton Keynes for 6 weeks. So yeah, very much do consider whether it's outside the sport domain as well. I know in COVID times you may be able to do work from home and then work with the business online. But if we do get to a point maybe where face-to-face is possible, then absolutely do consider the logistics of your placement setting.
I'm just thinking about the type of placement, and there's a few. There's a question here about about whether to do sort of something you've done before or try something completely different. And I'm afraid. Oh, let's see if I can. Hamira, is it? I apologise if I've pronounced it wrong. I'm not sure actually, because I think if you some people, I think particularly more vocational courses, you know what you want to do, and that's exactly what you want to do. You're doing the course, so it might be good to get a more depth of experience. But then another part of me thinks it's quite good to just try something completely different. And going back to our first point, then sort of there's something you thought, no, I don't know if I'd like to try that. You could try it and then at least cross it off, or it might surprise you. I mean, do you have a thought on that, Richard?
I think, and I don't want to assume because I know with many courses, many different professional development modules that you'll probably do throughout your degree. But I remember from my sport and exercise science degree, we had I can't remember what it was called now. I think PDP rings about professional development and practice or something along those lines. But around that point, that module helped me identify kind of like a needs analysis. So almost what my strengths and weaknesses and areas of improvement. So again, I think I'm just repeating what you're saying, Charlotte, very much on the focusing on the areas where I guess may push you out your comfort, as well as your I think on the government careers website at your specific role and job that you want to look at, you can do a bit of a matching exercise. So you look at your strengths and weaknesses, and then you also map it onto the competencies of your desired whether that's job or whether a selection of different jobs if you're still unsure yet. I always found that quite a useful exercise, which at least Trinity I was encouraged to do throughout my 2 placements that I did there, to really identify what I need to work towards and where I am at that current time. So I would certainly recommend doing something along those lines if you haven't done so already.
No, I agree. That's a great idea. And I would push yourself, go for it. I think, you know, this is your chance to really, you know, try something, but think about skills as well. I touched on before that, you know, we will do our best to find you placements that you want to go on, but realistically, particularly in the current climate, we might not be able to match everything, but see it as a path. You know, think about where you want to be 5 years after graduation and the steps that you need to take to get there. I was talking to people in the computing science course yesterday, and they've said, oh, you know, it'd be great to work for Sky Bet, but actually I know so many people who work for smaller agencies and they get I just seen Max's comment. They all work for smaller agencies and then they all get scooped up by the big businesses after 2 or 3 years when they're a bit trained up. So think of it as steps, and think of your placement as steps. So, you know, I want to work in this area and I need customer service skills. You might not get a placement in the exact area you want to go in, but you might be able to get amazing skills, customer facing. And when you go for your interview for that graduate job or that job that you want, you will have the examples, you will have a referee, you'll be able to talk about what you did, and your employer, they understand that we're not all robots and we work in exactly the right experience. You know, they will be impressed that you have gone and you have got the right skills. Would you agree with that, Macaulay and Richard?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, completely. And I guess if with the interview process, I know that's a different discussion altogether, but with employers, I found a lot more recently aren't just looking at what you can offer them, but they're also looking at what they can offer you. So it's not just one way, that it's not just, oh, how are you going to help the organization, which is great for you to kind of outline in your interview, but it's also what you can gather from working for them as well. It's not just like a placement thing that encourages, so what are you going to get out of that? Organizations are interested, as we're kind of switching towards, I guess, a person first, person centered philosophies at the heart of organizations. They're really interested, well, for most organizations I know are really interested in developing you as the individual. So playing a part of that with working with the myFuture team and being a placement provider for Trinity is very much in their best interest too.
Oh, so I completely agree. We've just got 10 minutes left. So anyone have any? Oh, we've got a few questions in the chat, but are there any other questions that people want to raise for Richard and Macaulay? If you can put it in the chat if you want, and I can ask the question, or raise your hand. Right. If not, what I would. Oh, Brett. Go on, Brett.
Yeah, just to sort of come in again quickly, I think I've been on the other side of the equation as well. I mean, in my role, I actually source a lot of new placements for the university, but I've provided placements myself. And a couple of times it's been students that have come in maybe a bit later in the day with the placements, and they've maybe not got quite what they want. But I think I had a girl come in that was quite nervous. I interviewed her beforehand. The interview wasn't great, but I still really wanted her to work with me, and she was quite quiet. But after, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, she changed so much, which was brilliant for me to see. And at the end of the placement, I interviewed her again, and she gave one of the best interviews I've ever seen. So I think for me as a placement provider, what I want to see is someone develop and sort of tell me how I can help them. I think if you go in with a list of what you want to achieve, maybe interviews are not easy for anyone, but if you really struggle with that, maybe a placement provider can help you with other things, confidence building. But I'd say go in, use initiative, but really think about what are the things that I want to develop that are a bit out of my comfort zone as well. You know, I think the stage a lot of students are in, they can be a little bit nervous about going into a placement, but someone isn't going to give you a placement unless they want to help you. And I'd just say use that as much as you can. Be professional, like, you know, Richard and Macaulay have said, but get as much out of it as you can for yourself.
Thanks, Brett. That's a really, really good point. And, you know, like, you know, we speak to every single employer who offers a placement, and we make it very clear that, you know, you are going to help them. You're going to do things, but they are there to help you as well. You are students. They are not paying you. So, you know, they know, and they come into this, their eyes open, that they are there to help you develop and learn. I've got a question from Max here. For Macaulay and Richard, is there a particular way in which you organised, planned your days, workloads that may be unknown or seen as unorthodox? That's a good question.
I don't know if Macaulay wants to answer first, perhaps, or.
Yeah, it is a good question. I'm just trying to think. For me, organising my day were kind of hard when I first started in a placement. Well, especially the workload, should I say, because I was always used to being micromanaged. And what I mean by that is being told by, you know, you've got this task and you need to do it by tomorrow, and so on and so on. What I found with the placements, you might have a little bit more flexibility in that. So you've got to use your own initiative, really, and, you know, plan your own days in there. So I use some great little tools, just type online basically, just to manage my workload from there. I don't know if that really answers your question on that.
I think, and it's difficult to say what would necessarily be known or unknown, because I guess what any of the feedback me or advice me and Macaulay provide may well be fully known by a lot of you we're speaking to. But I think what I did, certainly, I had a specific placement line manager within the within Badminton England who I had chats with at the end of the day each day, so I could feel confident about things. Equally, what I did is I had one of these. I think I actually I might have got it from WH Smith, but one of those checklist books where you can write down things that you've accomplished each day and things that you still have left to do. So when you come to work and placement the next day, you know, right, this is what I've still got left from the day before. This is a medium-term or long-term project that I'm working in. I know that probably sounds quite straight. Quite often there's no, like, if you're doing all the simple things right and really well, then it doesn't necessarily have to be like a kind of rare or, you know, kind of unknown or unique way of doing things. If you do the simple things really well, such as keeping organized, keeping checklists, keeping in touch with a either your placement supervisor from university or from your line manager within the placement organization, and maybe setting expectations, I think, at the beginning of the placement of how often you'd quite like to have feedback and speak with them, whether that be on a daily basis like I had, or whether it may be at the end of each week you kind of have a summary of your week and what you've learned. I think, yeah, that's what the advice I'd provide is setting expectations so that you can get the most of it with your line manager, and equally doing the simple things really well. So being organized, being on time, providing making the most out of opportunities provided to you, even if it's outside your comfort zone, as we've mentioned. So yeah, there's no kind of unique ways, so to speak, that make you stand out. I think if you're diligent and organized and you do the simple things really well, and so you're trustworthy, then that's, to me, what's the most important.
I would add to that, and because most things are remote now, and everybody throughout the whole country, if not the world, is struggling with this at the moment. It's quite hard. I struggle working from my kitchen. if you are working remotely, it's going to be even harder to make sure that you are present and that you are logging on when you say you will, you are there when you're expected to be at meetings, and that you almost over deliver. I have done this, I have done that. Don't bombard them and sort of find out how they want to report it to, but sort of keep notes yourself, so when they do ask you what you've done that day, when you can show. Because it is difficult working remotely, though. With all the remote teaching, you'll all be learning how to do it anyway. You're probably better than us. I mean, how is everyone finding working remotely? Are you able to keep going, keep disciplined? So Zoom, Google Classrooms is the bane of my life.
Blackboard Collaborate for me. I'm not sure. We have a system called Elise Beckett, and when we use this thing called Blackboard Collaborate, which was completely new to me at the start of this year. So so many different software out there.
I mean, that's what you will probably have a real advantage, because you'll all be used to these systems. You'll be used to working online. So you'll go in and you'll probably be sort of leading the way for people.